With one line, Reacher Season 3 explains every action genre trope in the show. A wisecrack Reacher makes about Hollywood filmmaking explains the sheer amount of action glitches on the show. The lead child Jack Reacher books are a unique fusion of intelligent mysteries and pulpy action. This is best seen with the main character himself, who reads like the love child of Jessica Fletcher and Dolph Lundgren. Reacher Season 3 adapts the seventh novel, Persuader, where Alan Ritchson's anti-hero gets to flex his brain and brawn in equal measure. The flashback structure employed by the first two seasons has been absent for the third series up until Episode 4, Dominique. This sees Reacher recounting his friendship with Sergeant Cole Mariah Robinson and their investigation into corrupt military intelligence officer Quinn Brian T. Quinn's horrific killing of Cole is what sets Reacher on his revenge mission in Season 3, with Quinn having miraculously survived Reacher shooting him in the head years before. Much of Dominique is devoted to the friendship that Reacher forms with Cole, including an early stakeout scene in a park. This is where they observe a military officer dropping classified documents inside a newspaper, something that Cole feels is a spy film glitch. To this, Reacher states, matter-of-factly, there's a reason Hollywood copies some things. They work. With this, Reacher handwaves away any complaints viewers might have about how over-the-top or cliché the show might get. It feels like Reacher's presence alone turns everything into an action movie. Previous seasons have seen Reacher, a drifter former soldier who is built like a tank despite never exercising, perform outlandish feats. He once kicked a car so hard it activated the airbag inside, or held onto a stretcher dangling from the back of a helicopter with one arm. On the surface, the show appears to be set in the real world, but it feels like Reacher's presence alone turns everything into an action movie. He can punch, shoot, and think his way out of seemingly impossible scenarios, and shrug off little things like being stabbed or taking multiple crowbar blows to the head. With Reacher's Hollywood comment, the show is making a metagag about its own reliance on action tropes, and that no matter how trite they are, there's a reason they reappear again and again. Reacher uses action genre tropes a lot, but does them well. Reacher sets itself apart from the typical crime procedural because it has a muscle-bound action hero at its center. This is a feature, not a bug. The books and their live-action adaptations know the heightened elements are the draw. Audiences want to follow a character who can outfight, outshoot, and outthink every opponent, and who always has the perfect cutting quip. Every season has seen Reacher seeking revenge for the murders of friends or family, where he always seems to be in the right place at the right time. There's always a final showdown with the main villain, and despite leaving trails of bodies in his wake every season, Reacher is never wanted by the authorities. Of course, each season gives him a hot new love interest too. Reacher is a series that warmly embraces action glitches and asks audiences to go along on the ride. It helps that these tropes are usually well deployed, and adds spice to what once again could be a bog-standard detective procedural. There's a moment halfway through Reacher Season 3 where Jack Reacher, towering above a cornered antagonist, utters a line so sharp and unvarnished it slices through not just the plot, but the very fabric of action storytelling itself. Simple, the bad guys always think they're the only ones who know the rules. In less than a breath, Reacher's gravelly deadpan dissects decades of action genre tropes, rules that both constrict and embolden the heroes and villains of these stories. It's a meta-commentary that feels almost accidental, almost like the big man didn't mean to tell us how the machine works, but couldn't help it. The third season, adapting Persuader, one of Lee Child's most taut and brutal novels, is ostensibly about a man going undercover to right an old wrong. But between the bone-crunching fight sequences and terse dialogue, it quietly becomes something more. A thesis statement about why we love this kind of story, and how Jack Reacher embodies its distilled essence. Let's break it down. The one-man army trope. Since the days of First Blood and Die Hard, action heroes have thrived as lone wolves taking on improbable odds. Reacher, with his 6'5", 250 pounds of pure muscle and no social security number aura, is perhaps the platonic ideal of this archetype. Yet the line makes it clear why this works. Villains are so enamored with their own cleverness. They underestimate the possibility that someone like Reacher not only knows their playbook but wrote footnotes in the margins. He's not just alone by chance. He's alone because that's what it takes to exploit the overconfidence of a complex criminal machine. The army of one works because the army of many assumes it doesn't have to worry about one. The hyper-competent protagonist, Trope, we're conditioned to think that the hero must get beaten down only to rise again. But Reacher breaks that mold by rarely, if ever, making mistakes. His near-omniscient reading of situations, people, and threats should be dull. Yet Season 3's line reframes it. Knowing the rules is a superpower, and most bad guys simply can't imagine anyone else does. His competence isn't wish fulfillment, it's battlefield literacy. The game is rigged, and Reachers memorize the cheat codes. The vengeance as virtue trope. From The Punisher to Taken, revenge has long been the engine of action narratives. Season 3, drawn from Persuader, is built on Reacher's mission to avenge a fallen comrade and rectify unfinished business. But again, that line about knowing the rules clarifies why vengeance feels justified, because Reacher isn't seeking revenge out of emotion alone. He's executing justice that others were too afraid or too compromised to handle. He understands the implicit code of retribution that villains abuse and lawmen hesitate to enforce. The explosions and quips trope. Action movies often balance violence with humor, the smirk after a grenade toss, the one-liner after a broken nose. Reacher doesn't quip. His humor is bone-dry, usually in the form of merciless observation rather than banter. Season 3 amplifies this. His one-liners aren't punchlines, they're clarifications of leverage and threat. When he says, "Simple, the bad guys always think they're the only ones who know the rules," it sounds like an action hero zinger. But it's actually just him summarizing the board state before making his next decisive move. The unstoppable juggernaut trope. Many action heroes, from John Wick to Ethan Hunt, endure endless punishment yet keep moving forward. Reacher, in contrast, rarely finds himself on the back foot long enough to require cinematic martyrdom. His fights end quickly. His strategy is preemptive. The line reveals why. Because villains underestimate opposition, Reacher can bulldoze through them before they realize they're playing the wrong game. This is what sets Reacher apart from modern action franchises bloated with spectacle. Efficiency is both aesthetic and thematic. There are no wasted punches, no gratuitous slow-motion shots. There's just the brutal unfolding of predictable cause and effect. The righteous outsider trope. The drifter who rolls into town, cleans up the corruption, and leaves without thanks is a staple stretching back to westerns and noir fiction. Reacher epitomizes this, arriving with no baggage, solving problems with extreme prejudice, and walking away before anyone can ask him to stay. But Season 3's thesis line explains why the outsider's status matters. He's not entangled in the bad guy's false sense of superiority. His detachment is what allows him to see the rulebook so clearly. Institutional players, cops, feds, crime lords are all compromised by relationships, politics, or ego. Reacher operates in pure objective reality. Why it works? By crystallizing all these tropes into one simple observation, Season 3 subtly tells us why the Reacher formula and the larger action genre still works. It's not because we enjoy improbable feats of strength or slow-mo gunfights. It's because, deep down, there's a catharsis in